Welcome to the pre-meeting from the Finance Committee meeting. Actually, one of our members got detained unexpectedly and expects to be along in about 15 minutes or less. But we are not in a decision-making meeting tonight by any means. We're just in the stage of gathering information for the Finance Committee to consider about budgets. So we decided to go ahead and tape this portion of it, and then we'll formally call a meeting to order when our third member comes. So we wanted to get some information about, we noticed that there are telephone amounts and budgets for quite a few of the departments in town, but not all. And we had some information about the overall picture of it, but we wanted to get a little more into what's going on with all of the reasons for having different telephone budgets in some departments but not others. So we asked Chris to come and explain that portion of the budget to us at this meeting. Chris, I thought we might start with the communications budget. That's the biggest one, and we understand that is basically a gathering place for a lot of the budgets that used to be in other departments, and you consolidated into the communication piece. So that might help to give us an overview. And then I think the next one was in the police. It's actually in the dispatch budget. There's a large telephone amount, and we understand that covers also, or they have a contract that covers some other telephone contracts that are going on in some of the other departments. It's a contract, I think, by the police department or the dispatch department, but then they charge out to the other departments that use some of the phones. So that would help with the overview of what's going on with the communication budget. So if that's okay, we could start. Chris, if you could tell us about the communications budget.
Department 196, communications.
Yeah.
In that budget, when we dropped OTT, we signed on with Comcast to provide our phone system plus internet. Okay, so that budget pays for every departmental telephone line. Okay, it also pays for internet access for every building in town. Okay, we have Comcast Business. I have 4 separate accounts because I have 4 separate buildings. I have the library, which has, I believe, 2 lines in it, or 3. I have the highway that has 2 lines. I have the annex that has 5 lines. And then I have the Council on Aging, which has 8 lines. And those all come on one bill to me to cover all the phones, the business lines for the town of Granby.
Those are landlines, or landlines in the sense that they're
phone over IP.
Phone over, VoIP, yeah.
It's considered. It was our landlines.
Right, what used to be a landline, yeah.
They're now voice over IP.
Yeah.
It's okay, but it's still the same line.
Yeah.
You call 7177. It rings here, but it's not. It's really through the internet, not really a physical hard wired connection.
Right.
Okay.
So those are all carried through the communications budget where they used to be
individual departmental
Yeah.
budgets. Okay.
Yeah.
Also, I pay for a modem at the old library. Okay. Because we still have planning and conservation who meet there, who still need access to the internet to be able to go out to, like, I know conservation goes out to DEP to get their forms and things like that. I think planning goes out and looks up stuff every now and then during their meetings. So we need internet availability there also. Okay. I'm going to touch the Board of Selectmen's budget. It's an increase of $1,200. What we were looking at trying to do is purchase what's called a MiFi, Wi-Fi. It's a mobile hotspot. What we were planning on doing is, what happens is if Comcast has an outage somewhere in town and it affects our building, we have no communication. So what we're trying to do is create a spot inside, say, the annex and also the Council on Aging, to be able to, so that if necessary, I can use my cell phone that is assigned to me through the Board of Selectmen's budget, to be able to go out and at least call Comcast and find out what's going on, reach into the outside world. Because otherwise, we're dead. We can't call out, we don't have internet, we have nothing. We're basically a dead zone.
Right.
Okay. I know the Finance Committee has suggested that we use our personal phones in those type of emergencies. No, I'm not gonna use my personal phone. If I have a town-issued phone, I should have the town. I should be able to use the town phone for all town business. That's the problem I'm having, John.
Yeah, no, yeah, let me just say, if we were suggesting using personal phones, I don't really recall that. It may have.
I think it was part of a big conversation that we can create mobile hotspots on individual phones.
Right.
Okay, but if a department doesn't have a town-issued phone, they have to use their own phone. They would have to create the hotspot. We would be using their data plan. We would be using all of that. Those are some of the issues that we run into, okay? This mobile hotspot that I'm looking at, it would cost $40 a month, unlimited data. What I would do, and I think you can have up to 3 concurrent users on the unit, okay? So we could have 3 conversations going on if Comcast goes down for whatever period of time. Also, with Kathy Kelly Reagan's new voter registration system, she has the new electronic units that she checks people in with. If she doesn't have access to the internet, those units can't communicate to each other, which then they really don't work. So what I would do is have this hotspot, give it to her, and let her use that to be able to let her communicate amongst her units and registering people, not to shut her down.
Now, she would take that to the meetings with her?
Yes,
and
she would
use
take
at
it
the-
and set it up next to her or whoever.
Yeah.
And log into that, and then she would have access to the internet through that, which is a town-owned hotspot.
At the special town meeting that we just had, they seem to be doing that, checking in. They had the computers up. Do you know how they were doing that?
No, I wasn't out there, so I can't answer that question.
Okay.
But they probably got the password, or probably a guest password, or maybe an administrator password from the school.
Use the
Probably
school.
to use the school
Ah.
Wi-Fi for that purpose. I don't know, because I wasn't there. Okay, but again, if the school goes down, their communication system goes down, I just want this availability. And this is through Verizon that I'm looking. I'm not looking at it through Comcast. It's a safety factor for me, or a backup plan for me, using a separate unit versus being tied into Comcast.
Is your cell phone through Comcast?
My
cell phone?
My town issued cell
Town
phone?
issued.
No, it's through Verizon.
It's through Verizon, but it's
Through
paid
the
for
town.
by the town.
Yes.
Then you don't have the need for the MyPhones.
But I'm just saying, all I'm saying, Bob, is if, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get a unit. No, I could probably operate, but one phone cannot
Yeah.
operate for the whole, for 4 offices in the upstairs and an office downstairs. Okay, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make it so that we don't shut down completely. Yes, I have a town issue phone. Yes, I could be up and running.
You could be up, but
I could be-
everybody else is still dead.
Is dead, okay? That's what I'm trying to do, is to be able to continue operations in case, for some reason, we lose service. And there are people who say service is intermittent for them in town. Never know what could happen. Somebody hits a telephone pole, all of a sudden I'm up. I don't know that until I try and go on the internet and find out that the internet is down, because my phones are quiet. Oh, nobody's calling. Well, maybe it isn't they're not. They're not calling, they just can't get through to me. It's those types of things. And that's all I'm trying to do. And same thing for up at the annex. You've got 4 offices up there. None of them have a town issued phone. A town issued phone is about $45 a month through the Verizon plan, which is a government, or we get the discount because it's on state purchasing. We use the state purchasing account for that. And on that account, we have a cell phone for Dave DeRosa. We have one for the building inspector. We have one for the fire chief. We have one for public facilities. And then the police chief, I think, has probably 8 or 9, because I think he gives them to each officer that's on duty. He gives them to his sergeants. He gives them to his lieutenant. He carries them himself. And then the dog officer gets them. And I know inside the fire department, the fire chief has one, and we have one on the ambulance, so that when they are responding or going to a hospital, they need access to the internet so they can be forwarding information to the emergency room about the patient they have in the ambulance. Okay.
So on the, if suppose Comcast goes down and the MiFi has to be activated to give access, what kind of phones would someone need to be able to?
Any kind of phone. Because what you're going to be doing on most smartphones,
You need a smartphone.
most smartphones, I don't have a flip phone, so I don't know the flip phones anymore.
Yeah.
But on most smartphones, you have a Wi-Fi area where you can log into a internet site. So we would power up the hotspot. You would know what the password is to get into, log into my hotspot, and then be able to operate. Unless you knew my password, you can't get into it.
And you don't need a Verizon contract on your phone in order to be able to hook into
No.
the MiFi. Anybody can do that.
Yes, yes.
And that would be whether that's a personal phone or whether it's a town issue.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct.
Okay.
It's just like when you go, say we come here, okay? If I go on my smartphone, it says the police station has a Wi-Fi available. What happens is I would have to know the password to be able
Right.
to log in, and then I can use their internet service free of charge. Okay?
And is there, I assume, but I don't know for certain, assume that there is some kind of distance requirement that you have to be close enough to the Wi-Fi box or whatever?
I would say, I don't know what the exact distance is, but yes, as in any other Wi-Fi, you know, you go here, you go
Right.
outside, you get 200 feet away, whatever. Your
It's
signal-
kinda like a
your sig-
router.
Yeah, your signal degrades the farther away you get.
Yeah.
And at some point, it just won't work. You know, and I know, driving along sometimes, or you're at a restaurant, you go on, you wanna go out on the internet, you see all these wireless things available. Some are Xfinity, some are Comcast, some are Verizon, then their own private ones. What's happening is there are hotspots around you. When Comcast, I'm gonna give you an example. I have Comcast at home. I have their router, okay? They automatically set the switch that mine is automatically a hotspot at home. So if you're driving by me, you can log in and use the internet on my plan.
Without your password?
Without my password, because that's what Xfinity is doing. They're trying to make every installation of theirs a hotspot.
Yeah.
And that's what they're trying to do. So when you're going out, I don't know if you've ever been out somewhere and you've looked
Okay.
at the availability,
Thumbs up.
and you
Yeah.
see all these,
Yeah.
that's what it is. It's the same right here. Now mine is gonna be a security, it's gonna have the little lock on it.
Right.
That if you don't know my password, you're not gonna be able to get into it.
Now, if someone who knows the password comes in, it would be able to use voice telephone communication and
And computer.
computer?
Computer, laptop,
Okay.
whatever, yes, because you'll be logging into that network access point, for lack of a better word. Okay?
Okay.
That's what it's for, so we can continue operating whenever.
And you say the fire and ambulance department already has that kind of capability?
They have a phone through
They have
our
a phone.
Verizon wireless account.
Okay.
Okay, and the one in the ambulance is a data-only plan. So that when they're out and about, they can go and, like I said, be communicating with the hospital
Uh-huh.
on the patient they're bringing in. And that's all that is used for. Let me make sure that was the only thing they could use.
Yeah, no, as a one-time, was a one-time user of services, I'm glad to see that stuff exists.
So, and basically, I'm just trying to limit town liability, okay? I don't want don't want to put like every phone that is town issued as a hotspot, because it's open to abuse potentially. And that's what I'm trying to avoid. By having these individual units, you can only get on through a town plan if you can say why you. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Okay.
And the units, you said were $40 a month, unlimited data?
$40 a month.
Regardless of how many phones happen to use it
Yes,
at any
yes.
one moment?
That $40 a month is for an unlimited plan, monthly cost. Now, if we don't think we're gonna use it or need it, we can shut it off for 1 month if we wanted to, and then reactivate it the next month. I don't know why I would do it, but, because you never know when the emergency's
That's
gonna
right.
occur, but that capability is there under this plan that we're looking at.
Okay. You hit upon, there's a separate Verizon contract for
Yes.
this. We already have we have a separate Verizon contract for the police department?
We are part of that contract.
Oh, the MiFi will be part of that contract?
Yes, it'll be part of that
Okay.
contract. And like my cell phone is part of his contract, okay? What we do is I tell the police chief, can you get me another line for fire chief? He gets the phone, we charge the fire chief $45 a month for the phone. It comes out of his budget for him to have a town issue phone. My phone, $45 coming out of Selectman's budget for me to have a town phone. Dave DeRozier, same thing. He has a phone, it gets charged to his budget. That's why we have phone things in each of the budgets that have town issue phones.
Okay, for the Comcast budget, basically you've combined all of the budgets into one for the most part.
Yes.
But for the Verizon budget, rather than do that in one department, it's-
I can if you want.
No,
At some
just
point.
trying,
what I'm
just trying to
saying-
understand what we're,
I'm just saying is because each individual department, I feel, should pay for a proper allocation of what it costs for the department.
right.
It's hard breaking up the Comcast 20 lines that I have into the individual departments. I could do it that way if that's what you want. I just find it easier doing it this way. I have been considering turning around and telling the highway, no, you're not gonna have a phone budget. It's all gonna come through this budget, communications. But I would just have to track it a little bit separately so that I could prove what I need on an annual basis, but I give you my
Right.
backup information on, this is what it is, this is what we're being charged, so on and so forth.
The highway department has a budget for telephone, and that comes, why is it, tell us again, why that,
Well, part of it's because he has a cell phone that's charged to him.
and that comes through the Verizon contract?
And that comes through the
Right.
Verizon contract, but it's char-
Right, that's for Dave,
his budget.
right.
And he also has a Comcast line that comes in, that offers him television service, because I know during a storm, a lot of times he wants to monitor what's going on, and he'll put the TV on to be able to see what's going on. Also, during a long duration storm, his guys go back to the garage to be able to rest, because they can't be out continually. By
Right.
federal law, they have, they can only plow for a certain period of time, then they have to have a rest period. When they go back there, he has the TV there for them to be able to stay there, otherwise they go home.
The Comcast contract sounds like it's basically for the VoIP. And just like anybody does business with Comcast, you can get a television contract.
Yeah, you can take telephone, you can take telephone and internet, you can take telephone, internet, and television.
Right.
You can pick any one of the three or any combination thereof, yes. You can do that as a residential account, yes.
Does the contract that we have with Comcast, does it depend upon how many individual lines that could have TV access there are?
No,
How
that's
many?
just site-based. It's not based upon how many TVs you have in a spot or any of that nature, no. Because we don't have the boxes.
Right.
The only time you're gonna get an additional cost is if you have to get the individual boxes that go in each TV,
Uh-huh.
okay? So that you could watch separate channels.
Right.
We don't care about people who don't watch 5 different channels, no. We're only here for one channel and that's it. If you don't like it, don't watch TV.
But I mean, so they charge us for each location that has the TV
Yes.
access?
Yes.
Um,
And the two that have that are Council on Aging and Highway.
Council Aging Highway.
Yeah.
So it's and then for the communication part of it, the telephone communication part of it, is that a charge based on how many total phones we have, or is that more of an individual site
Well,
contract?
they charge me by number of handsets I have, okay? It costs me
okay.
X number of dollars per handset. Now,
Okay.
okay, you have a basic model, you have what's called a secretary or the switchboard type of model, where it has two additional things and it has all the lines listed on there. So that if you get a call in, you can transfer it to any one of the phones on the system amongst the various buildings. Okay, and we have two of those, and then, like I said, we have a couple more extreme. We don't have any two-line phones, we don't have any of that stuff, because those would be more expensive too. And I don't see the need to have two lines on one phone. So,
Are the two television ones, Council on Aging and the Highway, do they come in on the overall bill and then you?
no, they come in on their own, they have their own modem assigned to them from Comcast that has that service authorized on that
And
modem.
there's no additional cost to that over what it would be if it were on the
No, I
combined
don't
of the
think so.
overall?
I don't think so.
Just thinking because they usually have bundling deals there, they say they're $5 or $10
I don't know
a
if they
month.
give you that, the same thing with business accounts as they do with
Yeah.
residential accounts. So, if you want, I can look into it, see if they'll bundle it with me.
I don't want, but you might want.
The Council on Aging has $1,200 in the budget for phones, and that covers what?
That covers basically their television service, and I think they may have some other service, I can't remember off the top of my head, John. There's 10 bills they deal with.
Okay.
If you want, I can show you what the bill is when I get one, if you want, let you know what the services are.
And the library has tell us about the library. There's a $1,000 charge to the library.
That is, when the library was built, the then fire chief refused to allow them to tie their fire and security alarm into the Comcast system. They required them to get 2 hardline connections from OTT for fire and security panel.
Do you know what's the rationale behind?
He didn't feel comfortable. He felt more comfortable having a landline, hardwired landline for that system instead of allowing it to be run through the Comcast system. Now, the Council on Aging and the Highway run on the internet system, on the Comcast system, no problems.
Yeah.
So, but as the fire chief, that was his purview to require it. We had to abide by him, otherwise the building wasn't gonna get built.
Yeah, there's a lot more paper in the library there isn't.
Yeah, so.
And the cemetery commissioners?
They have one line located up at their building behind the West Street School Cemetery. Or, and I guess people can call there if they want to buy plots or things of that nature, or they have to, call up funeral homes or whatever, and our funeral homes call them for open a grave up, gravesite up, or whatever. So
That's a landline, or is it the Comcast?
that's a landline, that's an OTT.
That's different from the Comcast.
Yeah, because I would have had to have put another whole system in there for one line, and it wasn't gonna be cost effective to do it that way.
Let's pause for a second.
Chairman, sorry to be late. I had a client call with an unexpected emergency, which they pay, so I gotta take care of it.
So we'll call the meeting to order now, and we've been going through the communication budget that Chris has told us about, all the things with the communication. Okay, that's all the questions I have. You have any questions? Okay. Chris, the other thing we wanted to ask about is that In the accounting budget, there's an item for training, I believe. It's for, let's see what it is. Item for wages in the accounting budget,
Yep.
other than for the accounting position. And we had a little bit of information that's going to be used for the town administrator's assistant to, become familiar with the accounting system?
Number one, be my backup, and number two, to be able to do it so I can take a vacation. If I can't have a backup, I have to be here 52 weeks a year, whether to pay bills or to pay payroll. And I'm sorry, I do want to take some vacation time. And I don't want to have to plan my vacation time around a bill schedule or a payroll schedule. You know, and to be honest with you, that line item has remained the same level since 2014, when I took over from the COG.
We know that.
Yeah, what I'm just saying is, you know, to raise it just a little bit so I can be able to train a backup, so I can take some time away from here. I don't think that's unreasonable if it's been a 5-year constant line item.
Right. Okay. Well, again, you know, in these early part of the budget
Yeah.
things, we sometimes ask questions in a way that makes it look like we think things are unreasonable, but basically we're all just in an information gathering stage. We're
Like
trying
I
to
told
find
you,
out what's going on.
hey, you guys want to come in and spend 15 hours a week doing it? Hey, be my guest.
So,
You know.
what happens now? Does your assistant do some of the work? Is she trained enough to be able to do a few things?
Yes, briefly.
Yeah.
She can go in and she can enter in the timesheets so that the payroll can be processed. She knows nothing else about the process.
Mhm.
Okay, that's all have had her do. I haven't shown her accounts payable because if I happen to be out, bills can wait until I come back
Yep.
the next week.
Mhm.
I usually don't take 2 weeks vacation. The only time I did was last year when my grandson was performing at Disney and I said, I'm sorry, I'm taking 2 weeks, okay? Normally, I don't take 2 weeks at a time. I find 9 times out of 10, I'll extend a weekend, or I'll take a couple days here, a couple days there, but I don't take a prolonged period of time. And I'm sorry, I'm getting older, and I'm getting where I want to be able to take enough time away for here to decompress.
So this is really to try to set up the assistant to be able to handle virtually all the things that you in your accounting position would have to do in case
In my
of,
absence.
in your absence.
Or
for
in case I
whatever
have
reasons.
a prolonged illness,
Yeah.
a surgery, or God forbid, I go get hit by a bus.
Yeah.
I think some people would say God forbid, but, you know, it's one of those things. It's so the town can keep operating
Mhm.
if something happens.
This sounds like one of those things that we've been sort of on the edge of disaster, looking at us
Yeah.
in case of something happening.
Fortunate.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
you know, and it's true for a lot of our departments. We have aging department heads who do a lot of things and they don't have backups. And we now have to start thinking about, what are we gonna do? Dave DeRozier, he's getting up in age, getting close to retirement type of age. We don't have anybody to replace him. We don't have anybody who he's grooming to know what he knows.
Mhm.
Okay, we got the town clerk. She's getting up there close to retirement. Same thing. We have our tax collector. She's talking about retirement. We have our treasurer. He's close to retirement age. You know, we have an aging department head group that we don't have anybody who can come in and step in their shoes and take over if they have to.
It's one of the, I mean, we've talked about a lot, it's one of the consequences, for better or for worse, of being in a small town.
Right.
You've still got all the same risks, all the same problems that big towns have, but you don't have usually the financial capabilities to set up the kind of backup systems which are second nature to a large town. And they're structured differently so that they have maybe one department that has all of their financial processes going on. And so you have time to cross-train people, at least in the basic ideas of things going on. And you just can't do that in a small town. as part of the normal course of business, so.
You know, the only thing that I've tried to think about doing is at some point maybe finding clerks and cross-training clerks in various departments.
Uh-huh.
You know, at each of the buildings, have a clerk who knows a little bit about the town clerk function, knows a little bit about the tax collector function, you know, so that if an emergency, they could potentially step in for a short time or be able to do some, majority of the work, and not do it all.
So this is for the training though, right? All right, because I mean, the discussion that we were having and we were looking at is, it's great, it makes sense for her to get trained up, for her to perform that function for you in addition to her additional duties, you know, potentially as overtime.
Yes.
We also saw in the selectmen's budget a line item that has been budgeted for a long time, basically for another person. And our question really came down to, would it simply make sense to hire someone whose job was to be the assistant accountant, doing all that stuff for you, and as opposed to using overtime type stuff, especially since we had this other position that was in the selectmen's budget that seems to have been on the books for a while, but never actually acted on.
Part of the problem I'm running into is space requirements.
Mhm.
You've been upstairs
Mhm.
at the Council on Aging. I have a desk now that's shared by the Veteran Services Officer.
Mhm.
Basically, it's used as a secondary desk to conduct business. When the Energy Committee needs to come in and use the computer or use a phone, they're at that desk.
Mhm.
That's the problem I'm running into. I don't have space. Yes, we need another part-time person in the selectman's office.
Mhm.
If I'm sick and my assistant is sick, we have to flip a coin and see who's the sickest, because one has to come in and one gets to stay home.
Mhm.
We have to coordinate vacation time. We have to coordinate time off for family type of
No, no.
situation. And if we could get
That's why
that
we were,
fit-
when we were really doing this, our question came up, would just simply make sense to hire someone, period.
But also now, the selectmen have indicated that they would rather have me use that money to hire a grant writer to begin with.
Okay?
Okay? It's those type of things. We have this constant flowing of things and changing of things that were happening that, yeah, it'd be nice to have a part-timer there.
Mhm.
But when I have influx and we have different priorities that we're trying to do, because
Mhm.
everyone wants a grant writer to be able to go out and get more money for the town, so we don't have to rely on taxation and
Mhm.
other type of revenue sources
Mhm.
to try and help us out
Mhm.
in our financial straits. Yeah. It's constantly, it's a constantly moving target, you know.
Let me ask a question kind of on a different topic related to that. I know there's the group that's taking a look at what should happen with the old West Street School and the property and everything else like that.
Yep.
Would they be looking at all at this question of, we know that we don't have adequate space in the town. We have 2 town halls, we don't have adequate space there, and it makes it hard to do some things. Would they be looking at some of the possibilities of what might happen as tied in with that question of
Yes.
West Street School?
Well, because when they first, I can only share what I know.
Right,
As part of
right.
it. When they were first formed, they got a floor plan of the West Street School. And they were looking at how could we fit the offices that are in the annex, the offices that are in the Council on Aging, and the offices that are in the old library, and be able to put them in that one building. Okay? And they started divvying up rooms and doing this and that and whatnot to try and get a feel for how much space we actually need. Because we have a lot of record stores that's all over town. We have a lot of, you know, offices that are in multiple places. We'd like to try and get one-stop shopping, if we could, for lack of a better word. Instead of saying, oh, no, you can't go here, you gotta go up to the 215B West State Street, because that's where that office is. They go to 215B, oh, no, you gotta go to 10 West State Street, because that's where that office is. If we can get everybody into the same building, it'll be an economy of scale. We can maybe then hire a receptionist type of position that could do a lot of this extra work to help cover offices when the department head, these one-person offices. They can maybe help do some intake, be able to help the residents a little at a time. Those are the type of things that would be great if we could all get together. But I don't know if we can get together because they're still in the process of doing the study.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's not really, you all know that the Finance Committee has pushed as hard as anybody for keeping budgets down and keeping expenses down and everything else, but we've gone on now for quite a few years with these multiple places that do business in town, and it's just, it seems silly. And if there's some group that, for whatever reason, is able to start looking at these kinds of things, I think I don't know how much we should even entertain the idea of keeping going on like this. We just got to we've got to find some better way to do this.
And we all agree.
Yeah.
But the issue is to try and build a building from scratch. You're talking maybe about $11 million
Yeah, right.
for the type of building we want. And the other issue that you run into is if you build a building, I think bigger than 7,500 square feet, I think you have to have a sprinkler system in it. Okay, that adds to the cost. And it's those type of things that we're trying to look at to try. And maybe if we can get a building going, maybe we can do a teen center or an after-school type of center where kids can go and shoot or.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we haven't done any work on it. We're not suggesting any one particular solution, just expressing the opinion that, we would certainly be behind having the select board have a look at this somehow.
And I concur with that. We need to do one-stop shopping. It doesn't do well when, planning board files are up in the old library, so we have to wait until somebody can cover the office so we can go up and try and find a file for something. They're down here at the building department talking to the building inspector. He needs something from the conservation file. I'm sorry, they're up at another building. We can't
Yeah,
get to them.
right.
It's the same thing. It's customer service.
Yeah.
And I agree, it's not a good system when you have a split over 3 buildings.
It is, John, it is something that's come up at the select board meeting. And,
Yeah.
just among yourself as a resident, as myself, just as Chris talked about, going to different places for different things,
Yeah.
it can be frustrating to some people, so, yeah, it's just the means, not how to do it.
It is under review. I can tell you that. Right
Glad
now.
to hear it. Glad to hear it.
We're actually meeting with Roy Brown tomorrow.
Are you?
Yes. No, we're meeting with Roy Brown tomorrow. He's an architect. To answer your question, we are.
Okay.
Just so you know, John, Roy Brown, we put an RFP for architectural services to be able to advise the committee on uses, potential uses of the West High School building. He was a respondee to that RFP, and the
Oh.
committee is
Good,
now
good.
talking with him.
Okay. I don't think I have any more questions. Do you have any more questions?
No,
Thanks for coming and explaining things. We've had, this is much, it's much easier to get all the information rather than transferring questions back and forth from
That's fine.
one piece to another. So I appreciate you coming in and spending
And
time
to
with
be
us.
honest with you, if at the beginning of the budget year, if you want to come and just go over it briefly with everybody's present, I don't have a problem with
Good. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
that. Because sometimes you can alleviate things by just being
Okay.
present. It's hard to sit with one person, you're busy scribbling while I'm talking, and,
Yeah.
a lot of us don't know shorthand, so.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
John knows that feeling when he gets with us.
Next up on the agenda is Chief Mitchell. We had some questions about one of the capital items is for the mini pumper rescue vehicle. And we had found out just a little bit about this before we had our first meeting on the budget, and it just, we decided we really didn't know enough to be able to make some kind of judgment on it. So we appreciate you coming in, Chief, and talking to us and telling us about that.
I think I can safely say to this committee that this department head isn't aged, and not having to worry about that right now.
Good to hear.
So I did watch the 13th and the 14th financial committee meetings on the station. And I feel a bit of at a disadvantage because one of the gentlemen who had the most questions doesn't seem to be here this evening. However, I did write down the questions that you had and have formulated the answers that I hope is satisfactory for you, and certainly I'm available to answer any further questions you have. So the first question really is, what is the Mini? And simply, the Mini is a smaller apparatus typically found on what you would see as, say, an F-550 chassis of a Ford. There's a misperception that people believe this is going to be a true first-line fire apparatus. The reality is, it's not large enough and not capable of being a first-line engine or pumper. What it is going to be considered is a rescue. It's going to be an all-purpose apparatus used for many of the calls that we have that we don't necessarily need to send a large apparatus out for. This includes motor vehicle accidents, utilities calls. It will be a backup EMS vehicle where it will have storage able to be secured on the apparatus in order to store paramedic equipment that by law needs to be in a locked cabinet. The particular important piece of this apparatus is that I say it's not meant to be a first line out apparatus, but it is probably going to be the apparatus that the town residents will see the most, because it's going to fulfill a lot of the functions that some of the larger apparatus currently respond to. And some of the other characteristics of this Mini will come out as we discuss further about some of these other questions you had. One of the questions is it replacing a vehicle? The answer to that is yes, it's actually replacing 3 vehicles. Okay, so there's going to be a significant cost savings to the community with regards to monthly maintenance, yearly maintenance, fuel costs, several other factors. But it's going to be replacing 3 apparatus. The 3 vehicles that it's going to be replacing is our Engine 3, which is probably the fire truck that is least seen in the community. It's the big fire truck that has a big reel on the back that has about ½ mile of hose. The fact is that's a single-use apparatus, and my intent as fire chief is to ensure that we're taking a holistic look at not only the fire department but the community and how we operate and provide the best services. And being the steward of the resources of the department, I want to ensure that we have apparatus that fulfill as many functions as possible. The other piece to that is it is getting increasingly difficult to find call volunteer members to join a fire department. So as such, we need to take into consideration that the apparatus that we're using are appropriate for the types of emergencies we have. I came to all this these findings as a result of I'll get to that in a minute. Kind of along the lines of, is it replacing other apparatus? One of the questions asked is, what is the number of apparatus that we have, and do we even have room for it? Well, first of all, with eliminating 2 to 3 apparatus, yeah, we're going to have room for it. Currently, we have a 10-bay apparatus station. Our complement of apparatus include 3 engines, a brush truck, a utility truck. We also have a transport vehicle, my chief's vehicle, and a utility vehicle. So that's 9 apparatus in a 10-bay, minus the ones that we're going to be trading out with potentially with this new apparatus. We're going to have plenty of room. Now, how the Mini fits into the plan is the question was where and what is Munson Ridge? Okay, Munson Ridge is up off Carver, closer to the Belchertown border. And Munson Ridge is essentially a residential development. And there's been 2 phases to this point, or there are expected to be 2 phases. One phase is already done where they have several homes already over there. However, there's an anticipation, and they're already working towards adding another up to 72 units.
72 homes?
72
Oh.
buildable plots with potential 72 homes. Okay, many of these homes, because of the terrain and topography, are on a hill. And the issue that I have, one of the questions is, what does he mean by he can't respond to calls? Well, you know, these people didn't consult with the fire department when they built their homes. Most of the time they don't. And we are limited by restricting certain things. And some of the homes that are there now and potentially to be built have grades of 15% with switchback turns. Getting a fire truck up there, one of the gentlemen on the board said, well, why doesn't he drive a fire truck up there and try it out? I'm not that incompetent. I will tell you I did do that. That's part of my job, is to not just guess things, but to come up with factual information. And factually, the driver operators who drove those pieces up there said it is scary. Now, we have an emergency up there in the middle of the winter, and I'll tell you that some of the residents right now park their cars at the bottom of the hill and will walk up and down the hill to get to their homes. We have an emergency there. There is an expectation that we as a fire department are going to provide the best possible services. If I try and am successful at getting a fire truck up any one of those driveways, don't expect me to get it down till spring, because there are cliffs there. And due to the characteristics of the apparatus, due to the weight, due to many other factors, not to mention if we're fighting a fire, we've just put an ice rink on that driveway. I may lose that truck and a firefighter or a whole crew going over a cliff. So my job as a fire chief, and one of the gentlemen said, well, why do we gotta worry about this one section of town? Unfortunately, you don't. I do. That's my tasking as the fire chief, is to ensure that I can provide the services to the community.
So the problem is, once you get off the main road, it's the driveways.
It's the driveways.
Driveways.
And we refer to Munson Ridge. The fact is there are plenty of other driveways that have been identified in town that we just can't get a fire truck up. For instance, I was advised of a fire that happened on Burnett, where they couldn't get the fire truck up there just because of the size. So where the Mini comes into play with this is the Mini is going to be able to do the same primary functions as a regular fire engine with a similarly rated pump, being at 1,500 gallons a minute, which is currently what are on our fire trucks now. It's going to provide me the ability to carry a tack line hose to initiate and perform firefighting tactics, but gives me the ability to be more maneuverable and potentially get into these places where some of our bigger trucks can't.
Sounds like this is sort of Granby's equivalent of big cities asking, how do we fight a fire on the 30th floor of a building?
Essentially, yes.
You can't do it with a regular fire truck.
Exactly, you really can't. And you know, when I first came to the town, I took a significant amount of time and I conducted a hazard assessment of the community. Now, one of the questions asked by one of the gentlemen on the committee was, you know, we haven't needed this for 20 years. Why all of a sudden do we need it? First of all, I can't speak for other fire chiefs. Okay, I can only speak for myself. And what I can tell you is, based on my assessment, we have some concerns that need to be identified. And in order to meet those needs, we need the right tools and equipment to do the job. I'm not just willy-nilly on this. I have here, if you want them, I have a report that I submitted to the Board of Selectmen. This is my Health of the Fire Department report. It outlines all the concerns that I have identified and found in my assessment. It includes personnel matters, it includes apparatus matters, it includes the ability to provide a good, adequate supply of water, which we have an issue with in this community. In that report, I identify that we need to have a comprehensive apparatus replacement program, something I'm currently working on. This gives us an idea of what we need now to look at not only our needs now, but also the future. Part of my job as fire chief is to not just look at what we're doing today. Munson Ridge is a perfect example. Yes, we may only have 15 houses up there now, but in the next 15 years, we're gonna have 72 more. Why would I not prepare now for something that we can do now and help a lot more that's what being a steward of the resources is about. I also feel that this is fiscally responsible. Because the apparatus I presented to you was not the most expensive one. It was the one that was appropriate for Granby. And that's the way I'm looking at things.
Chief, question. So are you anticipating the retirement of the other 3 vehicles for fiscal year 2019?
Say that again?
Are you anticipating the retirement of those 3 vehicles you mentioned in fiscal year 2019?
I anticipate the retirement of those as soon as that Mini is in my station.
Okay. And as a result of the Mini coming in, you indicated that there's going to be less maintenance necessary because of the retirement of those 3 vehicles.
Yes.
Has the lessening amount of those 3 vehicles and lessening amount of maintenance been reflected in your budget?
No, because
Okay,
I don't
good.
know that I have the apparatus. I can't predict that the town or this board or this committee or anybody is gonna say, yes, I have to go off the information I have in front of me.
Okay, fair
So no,
enough.
it does not.
Yeah.
This vehicle will respond to just about every fire, as well as emergencies and the like.
Yes, so most of our emergencies, we're still gonna be responding with the large primary fire truck. However, with those areas that, and what's gonna happen is, and we've already started doing this, we're going around town and we're identifying specific individual properties that have what we call these difficult driveways. So these will be loaded into the computer for the dispatcher. If that address shows up, they'll have a warning flash, and what that does is that will trigger a change in what we have established as a run card right now. So instead of sending a large primary fire truck, that smaller truck's gonna go first, because we've identified that that is a property that needs that. But like I said, it's also gonna go to your motor vehicle accidents, it's gonna go to all your utilities calls. I think that the community is gonna see a significant value in it, because they're always gonna see it. They're spending money, and it's gonna be something that they see, instead of a truck tucked away in a fire station that really doesn't have much use until we get the big one. And you know, we can do a lot more with a smaller apparatus more appropriate.
You said you're getting rid of, I think what I would call the hose truck.
Yes.
How are you gonna still be able to handle distances from water holes?
So very
Or
good.
how will you handle?
No, very good question. And that's actually outlined in my report. The reality is we have a significant issue with water holes in this town. They haven't been maintained. There's been some difficulty in doing that with other committees and environmental issues, and so we're working around those. The reality is if you hook that fire truck up to a hydrant, you're only getting a half a mile. And some of the newer apparatus, such as our tanker that we have, which is what we call a vacuum tanker, is going to be able to do the job much quicker. And a lot of communities are going to these these tankers that have the vacuum in it. The half mile is not really going to make much of a difference. If anything, it takes staffing, resources, manpower, just to get it laid out, let alone pick it up, when I can just drive a truck up to different water sources, throw in the hose, suck it up, and move on. So what we have done to address that water situation is we've implemented in the last year a series of run cards based on call types and severity of calls. And based on the type of call, it triggers a certain number of tankers or water apparatus from other communities to respond. And really, a lot of people are getting away from what we use with the hose reel is what we consider relay pumping. A lot of places are getting away from that and going more towards the idea of water shuttling. It's just a whole lot faster. And it's just getting the resources there. But we're gonna have the same issue otherwise.
If the Mini comes on board, do you have a sense of the dollar amounts that you anticipate saving on maintenance?
So right now, if I were to look at the large fire truck is roughly $1,300 a year for maintenance, to include inspection of the pumps and various other aspects. The brush truck, that's about $800, and then the utility vehicle that we're using is maybe $100-200. So subtract that, and then this new truck would probably be around $1,000. So
Mhm.
probably about $2,000 in
Okay.
total of savings a year on maintenance is anticipated. I also want to point out that though I can't tell you what it would be, yes, I'm asking for $225,000 for this apparatus, but we're potentially going to get some money back by the sale or trade-in of these apparatus.
The other three that you're, yeah.
One of them I don't anticipate much. It's a 1994 box truck, and but the others I anticipate something of a return. So I say 225. It's going to be less than that.
A great Christmas present for a 4-year-old kid.
Exactly. Yeah,
If anybody's interested,
You contact him back and then he can
right,
pull the hose and fight
right.
One of the pieces to this also asked at the meeting was the discussion on foam, and this was a very good question on how foam works. First of all, I got to point out that foam doesn't work without water. What foam does do is multiply our amount of water and usage to 5 times the amount. So the foam works in a way that it cools and smothers in a different way. It just
Right.
reacts with, and so yes, we have the foam capability. We use that, and it's supposed to make our job a little easier and essentially make it more effective. But we still need water
Right,
for the foam system.
right.
I think we may have been told that we could eliminate using water at the fires by using the foam, and maybe interpreted that to mean
Yeah.
no water being used at all.
No. The foam is essentially a thick liquid, and water and air is introduced into the foam, and the foam becomes this concentration of water and foam becomes aerated, which is depending on the concentration of air and water, you can make this foam almost into the consistency of shaving cream. We actually did it recently at a car fire. So we can change the consistency, but we still need the water in order to make the foam. It's the foam. When we say foam, it's really a concentrate.
Imagine, I don't know for certain, but imagine that if you have a chemical fire, that you'd probably rather have foam rather than water.
So chemical fires are an interesting piece. So the foam that we have on our fire trucks right now is what we call a Class A foam. It's for Class A fires, your ordinary combustibles, paper, wood, any solid object. When we start talking about hazardous materials, oftentimes we're talking about Class B type fires where it involves liquids, gases, things of that nature. You've got 2 additional types of fires, actually 2 additional types of fires, which include Class C, which are electrical fires, which are really nothing but ordinary Class A fires once you cut the power off. Those are pretty easy once you get the power off. And then you have Class D fires, which are combustible metals, magnesium, those types of things. We have special chemicals to deal with those. The foams that we have is a Class A foam. It could be used in certain applications on a Class B fire, but it's not designed for that sense. Something like that, if we have those types of fires, I'm calling Westover. They're going to bring over their trucks that have Class B foam.
Yeah.
But realistically, if we have a hazmat situation, gentlemen, I'm going to be sitting there going like this and make sure that whole scene can fit my thumb, because I don't want to be in there at hazmat.
Yeah.
We're going to be calling in the state for that.
Yeah, I see.
So questions on the mini part?
On the mini, are we anticipating that as a capital outlay, or are we going to look for that from town reserve funds, or?
That's different. I don't think that's up
not
for-
a me question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Couldn't answer that one for you.
As long as you get it, that's your concern.
I want to thank you for your role in the change which is going on in the whole budget process this year. People may not know, but the fire department and the ambulance department have basically been budgeted together. I mean, there's been a separation, but basically been budgeted together because of the nature of the personnel who work there. And we understand, and this year we saw for the first time, really a complete separation of the two budgets with a more realistic approach to what really is the cost of running a fire department and cost of running an ambulance department. I understand that you did some surveys to get an idea of what really split was needed there.
I did, and thank you for bringing that up. Again, in watching the meetings, I saw the questions that you had, and it's my hopes that, I'm not sure how much you may have heard about it, but that I can make some clarifications in some of those things. First of all, one of the issues that was presented to me when I first got hired was this idea of the enterprise fund. And that for years, the ambulance was supplemented because the enterprise fund wasn't meeting the intent of what an enterprise fund is, which is supposed to be self-sustaining.
It was the combination of fire.
Right.
There were some reasons why that was done because of a convenience for the accounting and everything else, but it created, you may have heard, it created a first problem one year when we voted to buy a new ambulance and then didn't vote for the personnel in order to run the ambulance because it was a question of who's doing what. And yeah, it was a crazy situation. But
so what I did was I took a holistic look at the budget for both the fire and EMS sides of the house, and to really try to best address the enterprise fund issue and to prevent the supplementation of that fund, I went, well, wait a minute, our full-time staff are only doing about 25% of their time on the ambulance, and 75% of their work is really fire-related between inspections that they do, all the community service matters, the educational piece that they do with the schools. There's a ton that they do, so 75% of their time is fire related, even though you flip those numbers, our call volume is 75% is EMS, 25 is fire. So I looked at the budget and I said, why don't we take the salary issue and split it the way it should be, 25%.
It's a great question.
75.
Great question.
So that's why I did that.
Yeah.
But also in doing that, I also was looking at the trends over the years on all the line items. Okay, and I noticed several inconsistencies with what was being budgeted and what the actual uses was on each line item. So what I did was I took the past trends and took into consideration the expectations or projections, and I come up with what I felt were more realistic numbers for these. So you'll see some line items that may have increased, but others have decreased. And I did that both for fire and the EMS side.
That's great. That is great.
So if you, now, one of the questions was, well, why is there $55,000 increase, you know, the difference? And it was a discussion on 9%, this percent, that percent. And I have for you my breakdown of the budget, which I hope may aid you in some of those questions. Somebody asked, oh, is this about a huge increase in salaries, or is this for a new person? Well, it's for a new person. $55,000 is actually $56,600 to be more precise, was what was the number that was the difference from last year to this year. Okay? If I took that person out and I looked at the two budgets from last year to this year, taking out that line item, I only increased my budget by $6,753, which is well below the 2% that was to be allowed by what they sent out to us for increases. The fact is, and I have a report here on that as well, we have a significant need for additional personnel in the department full-time, because without an additional person, right now I am having a significant issue filling nighttime paramedic shifts. That means potentially I don't have a paramedic on at night to serve this community. Volunteers are going away. You know, our people work on a 8-day work cycle, 4 days on, 4 days off. If I can fill half of those with a full-time member, it's going to be much easier filling the other half with my call volunteers. And I have my report on that. Proposal for staffing increase available for you. That outlines the needs and reasonings for increased personnel. Also, this is my recommendation report that I initially submitted for the mini. Also, for you to view, just to see where my mind is going, these are 3 of the 4 seasonal assessments that I have to do each year to determine what our needs are for the community for services each year. So those just may assist you a little bit in that. Here it is. Yeah, this is what I was looking for. So there's.
Excuse me, but this,
Yep.
the seasonal assessment is, looks at basically what the quarters of the year and asks what are the challenges for a fire department that are different.
Exactly.
Is this,
Precisely what that is. Because each season presents unique challenges for us in the fire service, whether it's being able to respond because of weather issues, getting our people to come in for calls, the types of emergencies that we see, which includes the different types of recreation that may be going on, which causes different types of medical responses. So these are all things that I've done
Right.
to take a holistic look at the community and what our needs are.
right.
So back to the budget piece. Again, you'll see that really the increases that I made, except for the addition of a new person, were minuscule compared to others. So I can give you, this is my, kind of my breakdown of that, which outlines everything. It includes what the anticipated salaries are for each person, which was one of the items that was mentioned in the,
Yeah, I mean, to be
Okay.
honest with you, receiving material like that at the beginning of the budget process, when you submit the budget, that'd be a big help to us. Because when we see your line item budget, we're trying to read the tea leaves to a certain
Yep.
extent. If we-
Absolutely.
If we have the backup documentation at the get-go.
Yep, no problem there.
This
That's
is
easy
questions.
stuff. That was actually created at the very beginning.
Okay.
I just filled out the forms that were presented to me by the
Mhm.
town, because that's the format they wanted. But if this will help you,
Yep.
I'll be more than happy to submit that.
It would.
Absolutely. So that's,
Well, let me interject a comment here. Years ago, the Finance Committee had the responsibility for doing the first initial work in all the budgets. So we basically got all this material from the departments, and they came in individually and talked to us, and it was very time consuming for a volunteer job, and it mostly wasn't necessary because the normal flow of budgets from year to year within departments fall within pretty well-defined parameters, and there really isn't much of a question. So when we switched the form of government and had a town administrator, we changed the whole budget process and has the town administrator be the person who does all this initial collection of data. I mean, it takes him an enormous amount of time, but he's doing it, we don't do that. So then we're in a position where we have some real benefits from that, and we have some difficulties. The real benefits is that almost all the hard work has been done. Everything that everybody submits for budgets has been pretty thoroughly gone over, and they get to see all of this material, which is a justification for some unusual sorts of things, and then it's handed over to us. What we then do is we then look at the budget, and on almost all the budgets, as said, it fits within well-defined parameters, and there isn't any question. When something is unusual in a budget, then we start asking the questions. And sometimes they get asked in a way that doesn't come across as really a question, but as a challenge to the situation. But it's not intended to be that. And so, but we have those questions because we don't see this material at the beginning. And we don't, and honestly, we don't want to. We don't have to see it for most of it. But when a question like this comes up, to be able to know that we can go and have somebody come in and give us all material, it's a great way to have us fulfill our responsibility to make sure that the view of the voters is followed to take a look at in detail what's going on with the budget and say, yeah, this is reasonable, or have you really considered something else, or is this really needed? So that's what that's for. But we appreciate you being able to have this material for us
No
for
problem.
these sort of questions, for the unusual things.
So I had two other matters to
Okay.
bring up that was asked during the questions of the meetings. One had to do with the forest ward money, and just so the committee understands.
Yeah, that's a small. That's the $1,800.
It's not even, no. So what that is, well, it looks like $1,800. That's just really a transfer of funds.
Yeah.
Because those funds are what comes in from the permits that we issue for burning permits and things of that nature.
Right.
And that money just goes into the forest warden's budget so that we can use for equipment that is geared towards specifically wildland firefighting and to some degree education and informational purposes. So that right now I can tell you we have around $6,000 in there, and that money is being used to buy new brush gear so that the firefighters can go out there with the appropriate firefighting gear and any tools and equipment that we need to perform those functions.
The reason it's done that way is because when they originally started charging for fire permits, the money was going into the firefighters' account, not to the town coffers.
Mm-hmm, okay.
So it was set up as a way to control it, make sure it ran through the town.
Yeah, which as it should. I just know there was some question. I just want to make it clear that that's from fees and it goes directly back into
Right.
firefighting activities. The last piece I wanted to answer for this committee had to do with the position of the Veteran Services Officer, which I recently took.
Oh, yeah, but glad you brought it up. Well, thank you for taking that position. Somebody right here in town to be able to go back and do that. Yeah,
I just think
that's
that our
good. That's
veterans
great.
deserve the
Yeah.
absolute best that
Yeah,
they can.
yeah.
No, I'm not making my firefighter wage. Let me make that explicitly clear. I am not making my firefighter wage. I am making $25 an hour, which is the lowest amount
Right.
possible through the where the wage schedule is set up through the state, if I remember correctly. So I make $25 an hour. I work 6 hours a week. That's Tuesdays and Thursdays from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. The question was, well, does it interfere with my duties? No. I will tell you that my contractual requirement for this town is 40 hours a week to make myself available for department matters. Gentlemen, I will tell you I work far more than 40 hours a week.
Right.
Okay, and having appointments as a Veteran Services Officer during the day, if somebody has an issue and can't make it in during those times, does not interfere, nor does it cut into what I do, because I put far more time in than I get paid for. So,
I think you probably understand from my previous comment that this is another example of something that was new. And when you present the budget to Chris, you have an opportunity to go through all of that in detail before any number ever gets put down on paper. And that's what's missing, so we have to ask that question, and just to gather the information as we're doing on this
and I
information.
completely understand that. I don't have an issue with the questions.
Yeah.
I think my concern is the manner in which the questions are asked and the speculations that are made, not just through the VSO issues, but the whole fire and ambulance and capital improvements that has occurred in these last two meetings. I will tell this community that I feel very slighted and upset to the fact that the joking nature of this process has been the way it has. I take my job very seriously. I am very dedicated to this community. I've only been here a year, and I feel I've found a home. And to have members of the community who were supposed to be on a committee that are talking about the budget to make light of the situation, I'm quite offended. Quite offended. It's not a laughing matter what I do. My job is to ensure the safety and security on the fire and EMS side of 6,500 plus residents, 2,700 plus residential homes, not to include the people that come to this community driving through or have business here. And the speculations that were made were quite inappropriate. You have questions, ask questions. But to sit here and have the conversation you did, I'm quite offended. Any other questions, gentlemen?
Anybody else have anything?
No?
Want to thank you for coming in. It's in the evening, we know that. We appreciate you coming in and talking to us about these things, and we're glad to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, the other item is from the 250th anniversary celebration. Mr. Lee.
Hello.
Hi, how
I
are
was
you?
asked to come see you guys. Okay. The reason I was asked to come see you guys, I have a budget of $13,000 for the year
Yeah. For this fiscal
for this
year.
fiscal year.
Right.
Yes. Some things came about that I didn't expect to be as large volume. One is the police budget. As of right now, the police budget came in at $7,200 for the police budget right now.
Yeah, you're talking about
For the parade.
for the parade itself, for the
Yeah,
for the celebration.
Right, because I know how, money is important for everybody and spenders, and believe it or not, I'm very cautious knowing the fact the money that was given to me, taxpayers, the whole thing, I don't go willy-nilly and just do it. Whenever I did an event, I tried, and I would say a good chunk of the time, my funds were returned back. So if I did an event and if it cost me $1,000, I usually got $1,000 back. So I always went back into the fund. Anything that I borrowed from it, I replaced it. Like buying the t-shirts, selling the coins, anything that's made of that goes back into.
Right.
So I tried not to spend and not get money in return.
Yeah, I think you told us when we talked before about how that whole process was.
Right, and
was set
so
up.
I
Yeah.
actually did like 90-something% of that. I did correct. A few events just out of my control, especially with weather. We had a winter festival. Unfortunately, I ended up dishing out more than what actually came in. But all the other events, I've actually either came out even or came out with a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to keep that in check because I know this last event, the parade, is the large part that everybody's actually anticipating for. So that is what my plan was. Initially, I was going to ask because I went to the Board of Selectmen to donate because I don't just spend money without asking permission unless I know I'm going to get money in return. Like for all the fairs, activities and everything else, I didn't go to the Board of Selectmen, but this money wasn't coming back. So I asked permission to use $2,000 to go towards Charter Day for more fireworks because it's our huge celebration. And talking with them and everything else, and I don't blame them whatsoever, they denied it because of the huge budget differences that occurred. So I'm not even upset at the fact that they didn't allow the $2,000 for the fireworks because there's other things I need to get. And to me, we're still having our fireworks, at Charter Day and everything like that. So we're still going to have that. I was just trying to make it a little bigger because it's our 250th. That's what I was trying to do. But because of the budget with the police department, I have to cut back in places. And to me, if we're still having it, just a little smaller. It's going to be the same size as we normally do for Charter Day. I just wanted it a little bigger. But I have no issue not adding to that. Unless I can find a company who wants to donate $2,000 and they can add it to the fireworks as a... But what I came up with, and unfortunately I didn't have prices for everything, but because I know you guys always let them know what we're getting, how much about, and everything else, so you at least have an idea of what I'm going to be spending money towards. Right now, like I said, the police budget is $7,200 as of right now.
Excuse me.
Yes.
You started off the year with the $13,000 budget.
Yes.
And do you know how much you spent to date?
Today, without getting some of my returns back, I did not get that line item, so I can't get you that number.
Roughly, do you have an idea?
I think I'm still at 13.
You think you're still about at 13?
Yeah, because if I give Mrs. Fishwood, my treasurer, the slip, and every time I look at it, I'm like, or if it goes down to like 12. I've never seen it past 11, and every time I get it back to I'm back at like 12 or 13. So I haven't really used that much. Believe it or not, my biggest expenses all the time is the Santa can at events.
What had you thought the budget might be for the police department?
Around 5,000.
Around 5,000?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the 2,000 made the hiccup, but I said, I'll just make adjustments because
Yeah.
that's what I do in my budget. So I was just making the. I just want to. I'm sorry, I can't find it because it's all mixed up in here, and I had it all lined up for you guys. What I want to at least tell you what's going on, so you understand, because you guys are going to want to know what's going on for the rest of. Because we finished June 10th, for the celebration. Is the parade is our final for the celebration.
Right.
The only one other event I have coming up is our barn dance, which was a huge success I had in the fall, and I had many people request for me to do it again in the spring. So I'm doing the barn dance. I'm questioning on doing the farm to table right now, only because there's some hiccups in it. But I wanted to do a farm to table dinner as well, but I'm not sure if we're able to do that one. So that one's still up in the air, but the barn dance is a go, and then obviously the parade is a go. When I sat down with the police department and the fire department, because obviously we'll go over safety, things we need to do, blockage, personnel, and that's when it increased, because the route we chose increased the personnel he's using. Way back when, in the 70s, when we had the 200th for the country, we did a parade. Do you remember? Yeah.
I remember.
You remember? Well, I remember coming up to 202 and then ending at Dufresne's. But I can't remember where I started, of course. I was only like 6.
I wasn't marching, I was watching it from over the top.
I was like 5 or 6 years old, but I do remember walking through the center of town, ending at Dufresne's and walking home because I lived on Center Street. I do remember walking that distance. So I thought, well, we did it then on our 200, so I was trying to repeat the same route as a historical event for us. And it just turns out there's more roadblocks and changes and detours and whatnot. But I am trying to pull every resource I have, because I have a few, between Charter Day and my other job, my full-time job that I do personally, and trying to pull a lot of favors to see if I can get a lot of stuff done. And with the help of actually Billy Johnson, the fire chief, with the state supplies, I'm borrowing signs, street signs, sawhorses, blockades. I'm borrowing as much stuff as I can throughout to save us money. I even had people donate their time to be in our parade. The Springfield, I can't remember the Springfield band, and Shriners, they're actually donating their time and coming to our parade. I've been working on this for 4 yeyears, and I've been trying to get people, I've been trying not to pay out and get people to come. And I've done pretty well, at least I think so, because I don't want to spend people's money. But now I'm down to the end where I need some stuff, and I'm not sure if I'm going to have enough money to do that. And that's why they asked me to come see you guys. Some of the things that I did write down is the things I know right now off the top of my head. I'm also trying to have, because I'm also part of Charter Day. And Charter Day, I don't know if you knew that, I'm also chair of Charter Day and the 250th. I'm trying to combine the two because technically it's one celebration, even though it's 2 events. So I'm trying to get the trash covered through Charter Day, because waste management normally lets us borrow without payment of trash. So that's a huge thing for us, is trash. So that's not listed on here, but I still need trash containers and whatnot going around the street of the parade route. Sorry I don't have all the numbers, but I know this is what I needed off the top of my head, and I wanted you guys to have something so you know what I'm actually looking for. Because I need at least 40 to 50 volunteers just to do the parade itself. And the no parking signs, I checked, and we don't have a lot of no parking signs, especially if I have multiple streets, which I also have a few. I don't have a lot of copies of this, but this is the actual map of the parade route. So you'll see the multiple streets that are going onto 202. Oh, here it is. That's the police one. That have to be blocked for safety, so no one gets injured. either the bystanders watching or the participants in the parade itself. Well, this way you'll have an idea, but it gets cut off right after Taylor Street, so you have an idea. Because I start right at Crescent Street. And then I go all the way down to Kendall Street. So those are a lot of streets that have to be blocked or whatnot, or detoured. So those are a lot of the streets that are listed on the police for personnel to be hired.
How long is the total route?
1.5 miles.
1.5
I had
miles.
to plot it out for the state. Because my goal is registration is at West Street School. That's why when you see the thing for Santa cans, 6 regular and 2 handicap, I need some at West Street School for the people who are going to be registering to participate. And then I need them along the parade route, because you got to figure where the people who are watching the parade, where they're going to use the restrooms. So I had to think of that as well. And then I also had to think of a lot of safety things as well.
Right.
And then I know I need caution tape to rope off sections and whatnot, because the staging's going to be down West Street. And I'm going to use half the road, but the staging's going to be down on West Street, so I have to stage each person. Anybody participating in St. Patty's before? St. Patty's Day Parade?
In one in Holyoke?
Yeah, the one in Holyoke. I don't know if you ever participated in
Never
it.
walked in it.
No.
Watching it is a participation
Oh, okay.
by itself.
Okay, walking, because we walk every year as a fire department, because I work for Westfield, and we walk in it. And they divide each section into A, B, C, D all the way down, and then they divide each section, like you allow 5 people per section. So depending how many people I have, I need to stage that all the way down West Street. So I know who's coming, how many coming, and everything else, because I have applications. So I got to use all that. So I need personnel and everything else for that. Then I need signs, caution tapes, and everything else to make sure everybody's safe. And we're going down Crescent Street, and then we're going all the way, ending at Kendall Street, and we're going to enter on the 202 entrance, what we use on Saturday night for fireworks, that big section for parking. That's where all the floats and everything's going to enter into that area right there. Because everyone's going to end there at Charter Day, because it's the last day as well for the celebration for that.
Where are you ending?
Dufresne's on 202 Kendall Street entrance.
Dufresne's 202 Kendall Street entrance. All right, now that's. You mean just that little thing where Kendall and 202 come together?
Yes, you know how there's another gate there? I don't know if you realize there's another gate there.
But it's not up Kendall Street 100 yards or 200
Nope.
yards, whatever
Nope,
it is.
because
For that entrance.
I'm trying to take use up less traffic, less space for. I still try to think of residents and everything else and emergencies, but I know it's going to be blocked to a certain point. And plus, I have trucks, buses, and everything else are coming all in, so I need a place to store everybody.
And there's going to be enough room in there,
Oh yeah.
even with all the vendors and.
Well, because Sundays are slowest day. I'm assuming it's going to be really busy that day, but Sunday on a regular charter day is slow. So slow I don't have people in the parking lot to park cars.
No, but I meant, yeah, but they have the rides and all that sort of stuff.
The rides have moved forward. Over the years they had switched because of water, and they're very heavy, those rides. Not like on vehicles, which is lighter. They had shifted forward, and they use the little soccer field. I call it the little soccer field, right before the driveway, or right next to the little park. They use all that section there, and they only come up a couple rides over the road. You haven't been to Charter Day in a while.
No. I go by it though every year.
I was like, yes, but, and of course, so there's a lot more room than it used to be back in the day when there used to be all over there. Now it's come forward and it's covered a lot of area as well here. So it's a little different than what you remembered. So there is plenty of parking room and whatnot. So, and then I was gonna ask permission for some businesses to use their areas for parking.
No.
But I need signs, as you see, Santa cans, caution tape. When I put ground sticks, those are all the posts I have to put up everywhere for posting, no parking, and a lot of things I need to do around each route. So this is what I'm guessing I'm going to need by. And then of course office supplies, obviously printing out papers, inks, my volunteers, because I have meetings, and each one's going to have a clipboard, which I still have. I think I still have a charter day, or they'll just have a piece of paper in their hand. And so everyone there will be directed where to go and how to get, so that's why I need supplies for that. the t-shirts are the volunteers, because I figured they are volunteering, and then they can be seen because it's that bright yellow, because I don't want anybody to get injured, and it'll have the 250 in the front, and it say volunteer in the back, and it's kind of like our gift to saying thank you for helping us with the parade, and so that's why the t-shirts are, and then I got the price of the t-shirt, which is cheaper than a vest, because I said, well, it'd be cheaper for me to get a vest or a t-shirt, and the guy said it's a t-shirt overall. And of course, the Santa cans, the average is 200, because I've already paid a few for some events, so I already know how much that was. But I don't know how the price of the handicap, because I didn't rent the handicap for some of my events. The extra things I needed, I did not get a bill yet for, I don't know what the fire department bill is yet.
Okay. So what you want to do is you want to make a transfer request
Okay.
from the
Yes.
reserve fund. And to do that, first of all, you got to get a budget together. So a rough idea of what you're going to be spending it on.
Kind of like this, but more accurate with numbers and everything else. For
Right,
it.
yeah. And so you come up with a real number.
Okay.
For it, and some justification for the real number. And I understand you think it's going to be in the $2,000 range, or it could be more than that depending upon the fire
My
department.
thought is 3,000 is what I think I'd be able to do it. Once I come up with my numbers, because someone asked me, I said, I'm hoping to hit only $3,000 more
Yeah,
than what I have already. But worst case scenario, I don't think I need more than 5. But I would want to come up with numbers and everything else, and so they said to come see you, and then you guys
Yeah.
would guide me how else to do this and what to get for you guys. So.
well, sharpen your estimate in the
Yes.
sense of actually getting an estimate on
Yeah.
what stuff's going to cost. And then you get the forms from Chris to fill out, but you have to have an elected official sign the request.
Okay.
It can't be done.
Kristen probably do.
Yeah, but Chris can do that. An elected official or the town administrator can.
Oh, I can sign it?
official. You can't, but.
I was just
no,
kidding, because
yeah.
I am an elected official.
But not for this.
Not for this,
No.
not for this department.
No, not for this department, another one.
Yeah.
This was
right.
too many hats.
Yeah.
Okay, elected to sign.
But
Okay.
and Chris would be the one
Okay,
to,
sounds good.
and he also then would take a look at what your budget is.
Right.
Because basically it's the elected official, or Chris, that's making the
Yes.
request for that. And then tell us about it, and we'll schedule a meeting. And
Okay.
come back and make a presentation.
Well, basically, I just wanted to, it's not, I'm not trying to be silly and getting a lot of stuff. I at least want you to have an idea of what I'm.
Right, no, I
aiming for
appreciate
to
you
get.
coming in early on this, yeah.
So you have an idea of what my
Yeah.
goal is to hit, and I don't expect, believe me, I'm trying to borrow, I'm not gonna use the word steal, but I'm gonna try to borrow whatever I
Right.
can from everybody else around. So I'm trying to save the town money for a large event.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions? I didn't think there would be, but I wasn't sure.
No, this is good. That's
Okay.
good, yeah.
Maybe I'll see you at the barn dance.
When is it?
It is May 19th. Just gonna double check.
Okay, well, just look at the camera and tell them you get some free publicity here. May 19th.
May 19th, barn dance, woo! And it's, actually, I'm limited on the number of people because of the space. So I only can sell 110 or 100 tickets. So it's limited.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Thank you for seeing me.
Thanks for coming in.
Okay.
Okay. All right, we're gonna add this to the information we have when we get around to approving the individual budgets. I thought that they were good presentations we had from both Chris and from John Mitchell. So it's what we needed on these issues. So, I don't have anything more for tonight. Do you have anything, Bob?
No.
So I mentioned that
Next week?
Yeah, I'll get in touch with people over the weekend about when we're actually having a
Same
meeting.
thing, Monday night was as a con,
Okay.
Yeah.
I have to talk to them and see, they were interested in getting the approval from us as quickly as possible, because their intention is to try to get the work done so they can make a presentation at either the
Okay.
town meeting or the special town meeting within the town meeting, so that they can get started. And you heard Chris say, that they may be doing the first initial work on what
Mhm.
town hall might be able to look like, or at least for their offices, we're gonna do it. So Try to do it Monday or Tuesday if we can, depending on what kind of availability. Maybe you could come back for Tuesday.
Tuesday night's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Thursday night's fine.
All right. I think they're supposed to be meeting tomorrow and get their estimates, is what I expect, so. Okay, if we have nothing else, take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Thank you.